Okay, it's 5:30. We're going to call this meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call and just confirm that quorum's here. So when I call your name, just state you're present. Monty Sokup,
Here.
Mark Bueller,
Here.
Faith Lopez,
Here.
Donovan Dillon. Okay, Christina's not here. I am here. Barry McMurphy.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum. Moving on to the second part of agenda item A, receive hybrid meeting and public comment guidelines from Leah.
Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. The primary format for accessing and participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. Board members and participating staff joining via Zoom are asked to leave their cameras on and remain unmuted during board discussion to allow for full participation. Public comment will be allowed. When the chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Please state your name before speaking. Virtual participants should use the raise hand functions to indicate they wish to speak. Once your name is called, you will be unmuted and you may turn your camera on to provide your comments. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. General public comment will be accepted and limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Okay, moving on to agenda item B, approving the minutes for the March 12th, 2026 meeting. Did you get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mark, second.
Second.
Okay, we'll just do all those in favor, aye.
Like that.
Opposed. Motion passes. Moving to agenda item C1, we are going to receive the Affordable Housing Study Report presentation by Development Strategies. Go ahead and turn it over to our friends.
Good evening. It's good to see you all again, at least on the screen. And as Jenny pulls this up, we are here to kind of discuss our progress of moving from the analysis we talked about 2 months ago into a strategic framework. And it's really about, we've been working really closely with the city. This is a very iterative process of going back and forth of getting it right. And so today we really want to connect the dots between analysis and strategy and kind of discuss with you. We're going to present some things and have time for discussion throughout. And we're going to kind of have a timer on here to try to keep to our time so that you can address other matters as well this evening. Next, please. Next. Yeah, and so to start, we presented this framework last time because our charge in this study is to give the city tools, policies, and strategies to move kind of their efforts in supporting housing development further. So it's really important to think about what does the city influence and what does the city not influence. And so this graphic is really geared to that, but also to help us as a group working with you all to keep in mind what the city can actually really move the needle on, which really informs strategic recommendations and actions that will come out of this in the report.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's good to be with you again. Just want to make sure because it was the first time I was speaking. It's good to see you all again. Thanks for having us this evening. So another kind of table setting slide. Leah and her team were kind to share this framework with us. We know that this is the framework you all use as a city to lay out goals and action strategies for different initiatives that you're working on, including the Community Health Improvement Plan and the A Place for Everyone plan. So we are working toward getting everything into this framework. It's not fully baked for tonight in the slide deck that we have for you tonight, but the end result will align with this framework and slot easily into other reports and efforts. So we wanted to make sure you all knew that going into the presentation tonight.
And so really at the top of the list is the goals. What are we working toward? And that was my
Sorry.
segue.
Yeah, I'm having some,
Right.
hold on. I'm having some technical challenges.
No problem.
I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare. Hold on a second. Okay, let's try this again.
And I'll just, we want to define the goals clearly for this project and really for any strategy because we want to answer the question why is the city doing this? Why are we working on this? Why are we raising more funds or changing this policy? So that it we have that to point back to and point back to the data and analysis of really framing, we're working toward addressing this challenge. Excellent. And so
Sorry, everyone.
these are still in draft phase, and I'm going to go through them real quickly, and then we'll pause for some discussion. Um, we came up working with the city team of 5 goals, and we talked about this a lot last time, but it's really about unsticking the market. So there's more production, more choice, more options, so people can move around more than they can today. Make housing more accessible. This is about physical accessibility and other disabilities, but it's also just having housing choice, having access to housing as a resident or future resident of Lawrence. We want to improve the housing conditions because there's challenges across a lot of the city. To have more dialogue around facts or what's really going on. We heard from others that there's there's a lot of communication around, well, I heard that, instead of really basing it in facts, and part of the study is partly to help with that. And then continue to leverage and evolve city programs and policies to support the housing development that Lawrence needs. Next, please. So on these slides, we have the goal, we have some of the data analysis we talked about last time to point to why this goal. And then we've integrated some quotes and data from the survey. We processed those results and really great input that really adds to the other data. And so for Unstick the Market, Lawrence is not producing what it used to in terms of housing, but is still growing. There's not enough listings. And people told us, we heard this more than once. I'm sure you're hearing it. We were almost at the point of having to move out of Lawrence to afford to live. And there's shortages across all types of housing. So we need to address that to unstick the market. Next. Make housing more accessible. We had some data last time about where those with disabilities live. And then we heard more in the survey as well, but 11% of the city's residents report some form of disability, but some groups of your population are, can't think of the word, are impacted more than average. It's the Black or African American community, and older adults, and American Indian and Alaska Native. And low-income seniors are having some challenges. Find it hard to pay for taxes and insurance and keep up with home repair so they can stay in their homes. And there's just a need for that deeply affordable, supportive housing for those with accessibility challenges. Improve housing conditions. So we know where some of the older housing stock is, where some building conditions are challenged, but 69% of survey respondents reported seeing or experiencing homes or apartments with significant repair needs. So over 2/3 of those who took the survey, have observed challenges. That's a pretty high percentages, and that's something that really needs to be addressed because the existing housing stock is really an important component. Preserving as much as we can helps the housing challenges. Next. Dialogue around facts. Some of this is about we heard, well, why isn't the city doing more to make land available for development? Well, there's currently some limited lots that the city has control over, and then there are some proactive things they can do, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But a lot of people reported having difficulty finding a home they could afford. That 76% is a pretty high percentage that we've seen across communities we've worked in. And then leveraging city programs and policies. This is really about meeting those needs of increasing the amount of development, increasing the amount of the development that Lawrence needs in the community. And a lot of people want to have that stable housing, and there's continued evolution of programs, policies, and partnerships that can help with that. So those are really the 5 key goals we're working on with the city team. And we'd like to get your response over the next 5 minutes. And any thoughts or input or something that's missing.
Could you go back to the leveraging city programs and policies,
Yeah.
number 5? I just want to read the one more time.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I am capturing your thoughts on a separate, I'm taking notes. So yes, anything you have to share. We're pausing here quickly to discuss the goals because we're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about brainstorming about actions and sort of next steps, but definitely want to pause here first and talk about these goals that we're iterating with the city. So I'm going to go back to that overview screen just to start us off.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask a general question about some of these results. Do you not find this in other communities you work in? That there's not enough housing, and I'd like better housing, and stuff needs to be fixed, and
Yeah, we absolutely do, but it's the scale of the challenge that differs. And I would say, for the most part, what we've observed in Lawrence is at least a little bit more challenged, more of a tight market. More people are struggling to find suitable housing for their needs than other places. Although there are communities similar to Lawrence as well, but it's a little bit elevated in Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
are these tenants or possible buyers that you talked?
Who responded to the survey? Who were at the roundtables, or both?
Who'd you talk to?
Everyone across, well, I shouldn't say everyone, can't be everyone, but across the spectrum, we talked with a wide variety of people. So for the stakeholder interviews, we had about 20 roundtables with, realtors, developers, people with lived experience of homelessness, who were using housing vouchers. We talked with students. We talked with folks from the chamber. We talked with business, folks from major employers, a variety of other groups as well. And then for the survey, I believe we had, I don't want to misquote. I'm going to go grab the exact number of results, but we had a really robust response from the community, and that survey was open to the public. So let me go verify the number of respondents we had. I don't want to misstate the number.
We really tried within the scope and process we have to talk to as much of a cross section of the community as we could. And the survey was part of that.
Yes. And we had, again, a really robust response. And a more detailed recap of all of those results will, of course, be available in the final report. We had about 1,200 responses to the survey.
Would logic tell me that 69% of those interviews say properties need repairs? Would those be tenants? Is that safe to say?
That's an overall number of the people who responded to the survey. Certainly, there are homeowners and renters mixed in with that. I don't have the exact numbers of the breakdown of renters versus owners for that particular stat in front of me, but certainly we have that information if you're curious.
Okay, I'm trying to understand if I answered that survey and I own a home, am I telling on myself or what
That's a good question. So this question was about
you
folks who
are?
had looked for housing in Lawrence. So this question said, in your housing search, have you seen, any number of things? And one of the questions was, have you seen homes or apartments with significant repair needs? So that could be somebody looking for a home to buy, or yes,
Okay.
certainly someone looking for an apartment to rent. Yes, thank you for
Uh,
yeah, asking.
I had a little difficulty with the framing of that question as well, because I think that the language was, have you experienced or seen,
Mm-hmm.
reported seeing or experiencing? And frankly, 69% seems low. It means that 30% aren't seeing any housing that's dilapidated, or I mean, you could interpret that way. And I'd kind of like to see that particular element built out a little. Maybe it's in the works, but with some substantiation from things like do they even do the American Community Survey census data that used to have hard data on number of um, um, homes without plumbing, homes with whatever. I mean, just as one possible source. Um, I guess I'd like to see that expanded and built out a little more, as far as giving us something to really think about and work with. When we bought our house 8 years ago, moved from Topeka, and we saw a lot of houses that really needed significant amount of work, and that was at that moment in time. That was because the market was so hot that people could sell crap. They could sell a house that needed, I mean, we walked in one house that was priced at or above market, and built in the 70s and had never been occupied by anybody but the original owner. And, and within 5 minutes, we could see $40,000 worth of repairs. And it sold within a couple of weeks. Anyway.
And I'd comment, I was a real estate broker for 22 years. So that means you get to hear everybody's problems, all your agents. And having been a first-time home buyer and raising a few and knowing hundreds, I've never seen a first-time home buyer that had a realistic expectation of the marketplace, the price, and the condition. So I don't doubt the numbers. I doubt the veracity of the information. I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised, certainly from the tenant's perspective either. So, agree.
Yeah,
Can I just say we're at 10 minutes? So is this possible to extend this time a little bit, or do we need to keep moving?
Thanks for jumping in. I was going to say the same thing. We probably do need to keep moving. Andy, any final thoughts before we?
just real quick, I think surveys are a good tool.
Of course.
It's going to give you guidance on what to look at. I mean, I don't get too stuck on the percentage either way. If it gets brought up, it's something we can just dive deeper in, and that's what a survey to me is worth.
Absolutely.
So that's all. I was just
Thanks for bringing that up. That is, and that we talk about that a lot. The survey, the analysis, the stakeholder conversations, they're all tools meant to be taken together and to provide a fuller picture. And of course, obviously the expertise of you all in the city, we're trying to work with a variety of sources to get a good, clear picture of the true needs and a good grip on strategies that will help. So yes, well said.
Jenny, before we move on, if it's okay with you in the chair, I'm wondering if we can stay on this for just a moment longer, just to do a quick check to see if I haven't heard any comments regarding feedback on the goals. And this is the final time that we will have this presentation before the report and strategies are finalized and goes to commission. So this is really the board's chance to give feedback on the goals and strategies and action items. So I know we're at a time constraint, but now's the time if there is any feedback on goals. Otherwise, we're going to presume that y'all are good.
I think the goals look good.
Okay.
They're concise and specific and useful.
They're not really measurable at this point, but maybe that's in the strategies and tactics. And yeah, these are very
Space with the goal.
Yeah, these are very exactly 30,000 feet.
I think as categories to dive deeper into, these feel good. Well, everyone feeling good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So just one more thing. There is not something about, and maybe it falls into more accessible housing voucher strategies that make housing more accessible. I read that as physical accessibility, not accessibility to the market.
Would that be unsticking the market? Could we put it in there?
I think that I'm having some difficulty between the ownership and the rental of it. So unsticking the market for me feels like it's more beneficial, obviously, for any of the homeowners geared towards that information. And so when I'm looking at the making housing more accessible, I'm thinking of especially the process that my clients right now are going through, applying for housing vouchers, and there's like no housing at all. And so when we're talking about unsticking the market, is it geared towards more of that home ownership, or is it rentals? And who are the rentals being owned by? Is that more city property? So those are just a few thoughts, but yeah, I think I'm just the differentiation of the issues that both renters, tenants, and homeowners face, I think are very vast.
So
I
don't read that.
Point.
Go ahead.
I will say this is very similar to the way we did A Place for Everyone, where we were able to put, so it was very specific, like
Right.
in the strategy, we were able to more clearly define what we wanted to see. And I would maybe recommend that would be the place to do that. Because I think if we're talking about vouchers, like it's accessibility of housing, because we can't do anything about the vouchers that are administered to us, but
Right.
we can talk about the utilization of vouchers, and a strategy is, I believe, making the market more accessible for renters. So that can be a strategy discussion under that space.
Yeah. I read unsticking the market as across the spectrum of housing, not just
Agreed.
for sale. So that could be unsticking apartment opportunities as well as, that's the way I read that, but just my read.
Yeah. That's how we intended it as well. So I'm glad that was brought up. Thank you for sharing those concerns. So there will be, I'm sure, opportunities to make sure that that's clear as we're fleshing everything out.
And I would say each of these include all types of housing, rental, for sale, et cetera, just in different ways. And yes, a lot more specificity will be underneath these. The next layer is objectives, which start to build that measurable, which for like unstick the market could be something like, hey, let's get production back to the historic average over the next 2 years. And then beneath that is like, what do we do to do that? So just for an example of where this is going.
Here, one more comment, sorry, on two. If you would add on the accessibility one, if you would add an economic capacity or financial capacity, that to me would pick up. Because to me, that just says physical or mobility.
Visual, hearing.
Yeah, I don't read an economic component to
Are
that.
you making the recommendation that the accessibility of obtaining housing should fit here?
I don't know. I'm just, to me, accessibility, it could read of all ages, abilities and financial capacity or something like that, or financial status, or
Is that why?
because that would pull in people with economic struggles. And maybe this isn't the right place. I'm just suggesting so.
I wonder if that waters it down too much though, because I mean, and partly because I've kind of worked in that arena quite a bit in housing. I mean, to me, accessibility
Is
just physically having a house that you can get into and live in and have the features that you need to accommodate whatever your ability, what your level of ability is. That's, I mean,
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm not.
To me, a very specific concept, but.
Yeah, and I think after we get past this section, it kind of breaks down things a bit more into the conversation. So I think if we want to circle back at the end to see if it captures any of these things that we've said that aren't addressed. That would be
We can make a whole.
Good.
good.
Reschedule the retreat.
This is, I mean, these are good these are good questions. These were things we were grappling with the city with around when we last met about these things. And originally, this make housing more accessible goal was broader. In the discussions we've had, we talked about that it may water it down too much. So we thought in changing the wording of goal 2 that we would sort of roll the financial access piece into unstick the market. And I believe that's when we added this affordability piece into the unstick the market part, which is not, and again, none of this is set in stone yet. So we can certainly keep moving things around. These are good questions.
So I'm wondering if the AHAB would advocate for a specific goal around affordability, or if you all see that that's covered enough.
I would recommend to you all that we listen to the rest of the presentation.
Sure. That's good too.
Unless y'all want to keep going, we can.
We already have.
Put a note on it.
Put some new spokes in this wheel.
Well, this was a good conversation. Thank you for making the time to really thoroughly consider these. If you all are good, we'll move on to the next section. Does that sound okay for now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks again for the good discussion. So we talked about the why, the goals, 30,000 feet, 30,000 foot statements, as someone so eloquently stated. Now we're going to get into the what, the strategic framework. So we have goals that we want to meet, and this piece is talking about what we're going to do to actually meet those goals. So as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, none of this is set in stone or final. The final document, the final strategy that we will have for you all will be in the format that you all use for other strategies. Here, I'll go back to it so you all can see this. It'll be more in this format. But for today, we've come up with these buckets to help us have a conversation about coming up with strategies. So we put together these 6 categories. You can think of them as containers for understanding the work that needs to be done. And we've mapped each bucket onto the goals. So for example, if we want to start with unstick the market, in order to unstick the market, we will need to identify and attract development opportunities and developers. We will also need, and this of course sets the table for building and diversifying the housing stock. We also want to ensure that the housing we're building and improving is accessible. So we're promoting access that's for folks with disabilities and folks who are aging in place, and a variety of other residents that may need specific housing accommodations in Lawrence. We also need to think about the policies that exist in Lawrence, because obviously policies govern how we all work. They govern how housing is produced. And we need to ensure that they're brought into line with what we're trying to do differently in the future. And then finally, we have this inform bucket, and that is about having open dialogues with partners in the public in both directions. So again, these are buckets, containers that we're going to use today to have conversations about strategies that you all would like to contribute to the strategy framework that we're pulling together. I'm passing it back over to Andy to lead us into this next section.
Okay, so this next section, we're going to go through the 6 categories that Jenny just talked through. And we have some words and phrases on the slides that begin to get at actions that can be taken. So this is really to set up conversation. The deliverable will have specific actions and targets and lead actors, targets being metrics and, timelines, etc. And so, this is part of the process. We have a whole list that we keep of possible actions and that based on best practices, but we really try to align them with the city, the community's unique aspects. And so as we go through these, we want you to look at the prompts, look at something that really sticks out that would be impactful, or maybe something you've been thinking about or heard from another community that you think would be applicable in Lawrence to address, to work toward the goals, the 5 goals. Did I cover it all, Jenny?
I think so. The other thing you could think about as you're looking at the slides is to share with us a program or a policy that you've seen, as Andy said, maybe in another community, or one that you would like to see changed or expanded in some way in Lawrence. Again, this is about brainstorming, gathering input from you all at the front end of the strategy creation process. And that's what we're hoping to talk about today. So I am going to move to the next slide, and I'm going to start a timer for 5 minutes for each slide, again, to try to keep us moving at a clip. So first we have preserve and improve.
Okay, so this is, we've already talked about what this is about, but a quick example of what an action might look like for property maintenance is set aside $250,000 a year for property improvements that allow people, whether it's aging in place or low or moderate income people who need just a major repair to keep their home habitable, but set aside that money for a program to help with those maintenance items so people can stay in their homes. So, yeah, go ahead.
We have ours look different than the ones that you're sharing on your screen.
This was good catch, Donovan. This is one slide that we made a change to. There was a box on this slide that got, hold on a second. There's a box on this slide that got moved to this slide. It was a little bit of an error. The accessibility modifications we realized needed to be under promote access and not under unstick the market, or under preserve and improve, excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you. That should be the only one that's different. Thank you for noticing that.
Is she gonna keep talking?
Please go.
You go.
No, sorry. So we're going to pause at each bucket if it works for you all. Otherwise, we could also wait until we've gone through all 6 of them and have sort of a broader conversation slide by slide. But we thought we would pause on each bucket and give you all a chance to share your thoughts. Again, thinking about each of these words as a prompt. What are some programs and ideas that you would like to share? Go ahead.
Jenny, I think the collective would like to just hear each bucket and then maybe we have discussion.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Let's keep going. I'm going to stop this timer and we'll restart it when it's time to do discussion.
And I will add that whenever we start to get to this categorization and options for actions, there is overlap. You can do multiple things to address different goals. This is to try to get some structure so we get them all kind of in the right place. So for identify and attract, this is about the city taking a more proactive role where it can to identify potential housing development sites and what it would take to get a site ready for development, whether it is utilities or any number of things. An example of something that might help an action that might help, is adding a revolving loan fund to the affordable housing trust fund to help attract more investment into the community. So build and diversify. This is about increasing the pace of development. It's about diversifying the housing product so people have more choices, more options at more price points. One action that a lot of communities are working on right now is pre-approved plans. So like under missing middle housing, you could work on just a small set of pre-approved plans, of attached and small multifamily housing that's kind of vetted through community engagement and vetted with developers to understand the full picture of what it would take to get that product in the market and understand the feasibility, the economics of those different products. Promoting access could be under accessibility modifications, pursuing grants to fund a home accessibility program that helps support aging in place and has some standards around, whether it's zero entry, the width of the doors, bathroom modifications, kitchen modifications that allow somebody to stay in their home longer, as long as they want. And update policies. Again, I want to state that Lawrence has done a lot to revise its policies and its control, and really should take on the continuous improvement mindset because of the state rules will change and local possibilities may change. But one thing, again, thinking about a proactive action is identify growth areas outside the city, which you already kind of have from your planning boundaries, that could be annexed, and kind of cost out where infrastructure could reasonably be extended. And I say reasonable because some areas can be engineered, but it's very expensive. So you could, have an idea up front of like where to try working with property owners and other facets to identify that future land that's needed for the new development. Okay. And under inform, this is really about having more information available and consistent information that goes back to kind of the data we have from the study and other things that are truly happening. Something we heard a lot of and see a lot of, not just in Lawrence, is the challenge when a new development comes up and there's a lot of community opposition and it ends up kind of not happening. There could be a community engagement toolkit to help the developers who are coming forth with that idea to do some early engagement with the community to show what they're doing, images of the development, and then use case studies from other communities or within Lawrence to say, this is a finished product. This was the impact or lack of impact on the community. So this is what you're going to see. That has helped in some places and could be a good action to help with the inform category.
That's the last one. So I'll go back to this first one and we can start our conversation. I'll restart the timer.
Don't we do some of these in what we do every day? Okay.
I wonder if the intention of some of the things that we may do is just increasing our ability to do them, which
True. More money, I get it. We need
Yes.
it.
Can you explain a little bit more the City and Housing Trust partnership? What is meant by that?
Jenny, do you have an idea?
Go grab our.
Well, I think, the housing trust fund's part of the city, and it's funded by, the city and the special program. I think it could be also be seen as expanding the partnership to potential other funding sources that could be private or philanthropic. And yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
So for me, that would mean us working closer with our own planning department to figure out how we could use the trust fund to incentivize development in the right kind of development, maybe, which I think has some real power to it.
There's also the layer. There's the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and there's also the Community Housing Trust. So there could be two layers, too. Yeah, and I'm sorry that language is ambiguous and unclear. That's why I paused to go grab our notes about what we were talking about.
You mean our CLT, like that partner,
right?
Oh, it's fitness to homeowners.
Is this current
Community trust? Sorry, acronym.
So I apologize for the ambiguous language. Yes.
Okay.
So what that implies is us working more closely with them as opposed to putting out an RFP to go to everybody.
Potentially, yes.
Develop projects. I could see
We could be
that.
doing that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But
A lot of this we're doing right now, but this is to set the goals and strategies for the next 10 years for housing.
okay.
Do we want to continue?
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
that shift in how we're operating now to go down that road, which I would advocate for personally.
Like we exclusively work with a land trust that guarantees affordability.
Right.
I don't hate it.
Or multiple ones. I mean, you got 3 in town that do that. Okay. So I guess
just to reiterate, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you.
From my perspective, the most powerful one is that one, the City Housing Trust, or,
Would you
in the city lots?
Would it be like easier to clarify that to put community land trust instead of housing trust? Because I think that language was the thing that confused me.
Yes, we can definitely update that. And also these will not be in the final report in their current state. They will be fleshed out into as Andy mentioned, actions with metrics and targets, and they'll be more specific. So yes, and I'm glad we're having this conversation about just to flesh this out. And I also wanted to reiterate what someone said earlier about how this does not just have to be new programs. This can be growing programs that already exist or doing things differently. So I don't need to be super squishy about it, but we also respect you all as local experts in all things Lawrence. You're guiding the project, so we wanted to make sure we got ample input from you all before we start putting a lot of detail with the strategies. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to stop talking now.
And that would be helpful for me on this slide. And it's so funny just because you refer to us as experts is that I'm not an expert on what exactly all of these things look like or like operate. And I think with like preserving and improving, identify which of those categories falls into like we're doing pretty well on this. Do we want to stay on track with that versus like this is an area that's lacking that we should address a specific thing in would be very helpful.
That would be really helpful to have like a rating of how we're, because I know one of these is community perception. I'm not going to get that title right, whatever that one is. And I think this is a crux of that particular problem is that a lot of folks do not know what is already happening. And so the assumption is the public opposition, the narrative that, these dominant narratives that exist. So I wonder if we could take some of these and be like, you're actually already doing this. Maybe a strategy is how can you grow this? Or this is brand new. and something to consider.
You want their opinion of how we're doing?
Yeah. Or I mean, I just at least like
They want to get hired again.
Sure. At least say like you are doing this. I don't need a grade, but at least you're doing this or you're not doing this.
Even to your
For
earlier, the like looking at this and being like, well, we're already doing some of this stuff. It's if that's all people are pulling from this entire thing that we've spent a lot of time on and spent money on, that's not a good conclusion for the general public to be like,
No.
Well, there will be some.
of course.
Well, there's some of that. I mean,
well,
Just-
yeah, but I think it's helpful to at least like be like, well, if you actually dive into it, there's actual like tangible things to pull from this.
But we'll say just some historical context on the Place for Everyone plan. When we did introduce it, we did not give the context that a lot of projects or strategies we were doing were already taking place or completed. And that led to a lot of negative public perception that we like dropped a 20-page document and they're like, you haven't done any of this. We're like, no, we've done. So we had to backtrack quite a bit. So I think just as a like starting point for our community, and I know we'll have to be conduits of that, providing that public education, but even just an indicator would be helpful.
yeah, I think if you go to this preserve and improve slide, I mean, just to your point, Muriel, property maintenance, we already do to some degree, CDBG program, weatherization program, renovation, rehab falls under that same thing. Plus we've done trust fund modifications. We don't really have an abandoned, vacant, dilapidated housing.
We're
thing.
not
So
very aggressive on that.
No, we're not aggressive on that, but we do have like rental property inspection. Whether it's a great program or not, we have it. So those are three things right there but we're not doing the city housing trust partnership thing in the sense that we're really directing funds directly there.
Helps us prioritize too, as we're thinking, as the city's thinking of strategies, there's conversation, till the cows come home about property inspection and what that needs to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And do we consider in the strategies prioritizing some of these categories because of what we're seeing from the study you've conducted, and then also what we have been doing and noticing from community input?
Yeah, that's an important thing to think about as we're having these conversations too, is what's more and less important. One example of how something that you all are already doing might be expanded per recommendations in this study would be perhaps for under property inspection, a goal would be to, not goal, strategy action would be to hire 2 more property inspectors to expand the program. And then of course, finding funding for that and sustainable funding. So that's an example of how, prioritizing that particular category might translate into action.
That particular one can be talking about. That's in any community a political hot potato that, and some of that analysis I think has to go to. How do we evaluate that? How do we address that part of it and make it seem more palatable to folks, to property owners?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, just to reiterate, like when what will be in there is like a category of keep doing this the way you are, expand on this, maybe change this a little bit and add this new thing. So like it's not starting with from nothing, and it's acknowledging that a lot's going on and needs to be continued.
Looking at my notes here, Andy.
You want to click to the next one?
The next one.
Yeah, I was like,
And I set the because we're kind of bouncing around, which is great. That's all good conversations do. I set the overall timer for the whole thing. So we've got about 15 minutes left to keep chatting about this. And if there's extra time to go a little over, you all can decide about that.
Remove.
So again, this is about identifying development opportunities and attracting developers. That's what this bucket is about. And one example of a more specific strategy that could be tied to some of these prompts would be adding a revolving loan fund element to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Our understanding is right now it is grant-based. Some affordable housing trust funds also have a low or no interest loan component that helps keep the fund more sustainable and attract more investment. So again, what stands out to you about these prompts? What are issues that are top of mind for you under this, bucket of potential
So we already have
strategies?
a subgroup working on proactive site identification. So we're already we're working on that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Could you explain more what you mean by cost of infill as a strategy?
I think that one of the limitations to getting more infill where you actually have space for it is, sometimes there's a thought that because there's utilities and streets and all of that, like it's easier or less expensive. And it usually isn't, particularly in older neighborhoods. And, there's an element of like, what could go here? Is it a single family home, or are we adding a little more density and have a 4-unit? And what will it take to get there? And can the trust fund support that? Because there will likely be a gap. So it's having just a better understanding of the economics of doing infill, so that when you all have those sites, whether it's city owned or you're partnering with the owner to get something done, there's a little bit more straightforward and clear expectations about what it's going to take to get that desired product there.
We play that it depends on who you are game in Lawrence pretty well. If you're a private guy or gal, the rules are a little more circumspect. If it's a nonprofit, we look at that differently, and I kind of do too. But that's going to be a tough one. It depends on who's asking.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think I find the cost of infill one actually really interesting because, like, I know, and this might be jumping a little to like the public information one, like when talking about infill, that is like just public facing, like a very stigmatized conversation on both ends. So I do think if having those breakdowns on the front end and thinking about them in the space of policy and setting goals, we would have insight to better have those conversations and be ready to roll with the punches. Because I don't know, but even with meeting our market needs, is it even possible to just build on available sites to meet those goals? Rather than posing it as either one or the other,
Also, the city could incentivize that to some degree. Like when you build on an infill site and you do a water tap, you still pay a system development fee.
Yeah, why don't you waive some fees?
And that system's been there for 60 years. I get that they have to fund the operation, all that, but most of that comes through usage fees. Anyway, there's some ways that maybe that infill could be incentivized.
There absolutely are.
Through policy.
Yeah, I really like that one again, to Monty's point, we are looking at site identification. We are looking at funding sources.
Right.
We are annexations, an interesting conversation community will continue to have. But I think particularly the cost of infill is a transparency conversation that I think we can have, and also does lead to some more opportunity and incentive and maybe beyond our trust fund, because there's no way with what we
Right.
have right now,
True.
we can move in these directions. So what are the other spaces within the city that we can
Yeah.
make it more appetizing to do infill for the right type of housing that we want to see in our community?
Yeah. Well, luckily the city's moving in the right direction on annexation.
Mhm.
I mean, they have, when K10 came, they extended the infrastructure across so that now there's 600 and some acres being proposed. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a 140-acre thing. So that's moving in the right direction. And maybe there's not a lot we need to do there, is all I'm saying.
Just understanding what will be developed on that.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
that's the piece of it is annexation is an interesting conversation, but if we're annexing to build housing that is increasingly unaffordable, then we're
Right.
missing the point. And that I think is the particular pressure or pain point that is happening right now.
Yeah.
So how do we jump into that game and advocate for affordable?
I don't know that you
I
can.
don't know.
I think the state legislature has said what they have to say about inclusionary zoning.
Yeah.
Could be incentivized though.
Right.
Yes. Right, exactly. And what are the incentives?
Right.
Right.
There's some communities where land trusts are looking at partnering in subdivisions to, acquire scattered sites.
Mhm.
Same homes would be built. It would just be put in the land trust model.
Yeah.
And for the identify and acquire new funding sources, is that for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that you're specifically referencing? Okay. Thank you.
Ready for the next slide. Okay. Ready.
You may move.
Oh,
Is it stuck?
yeah, and okay, sorry.
Let's see. Can I try to do this without it in front of us? The next.
Okay, sorry about that. I was my mute was stuck on. So sorry, I muted myself to mask some house noises. Re your question, Leah. Yes, for the affordable, it could involve the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It could also involve other types of funding sources. So both and. And now I will move us to the next slide as requested. Sorry about that.
I think we already do number one.
Keep going on this stuff.
But is there some further breakdown to be done in that? I mean,
Really interested in this purple.
as far as types of NFT
In the
projects.
Yeah, I'm interested in this, what housing diversification means for a neighborhood. Can you
So that
Sorry.
came up. I'm sorry, go ahead. I talked over somebody.
go for it?
So that's an issue that came up frequently in the stakeholder conversations from a variety of angles. There are some concerns, perceptions, just thoughts kind of floating around, and we see this in most communities we work in about what adding ADUs means for a neighborhood, what it means if a neighborhood has more apartments than it used to, what that means regarding the impact on the school district and the impact on the types of people who are able to afford to live in a neighborhood. So the reason that one's purple and tied to this dialogue around facts is because it seemed to us as we went through the stakeholder conversations that there may be need for some, public dialogue or information sharing around some of these issues, the issue of housing diversification and what it truly tends to mean for a neighborhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah. A quick comment. I live near campus and I've lived near campus for 35 years.
Mhm.
there's always been constant concern in those neighborhoods that that their world is changing. So you can call it NIMBY, you can call it lots of things, but we're now defining families different, and that stuff's not going away. It's not going away in moderate neighborhoods, and it's not going away in rich neighborhoods. It's not going away. So you're right. More discussion's important, but you're getting to the quick of the dynamic of a neighborhood and what's comfortable and acceptable and safe and school friendly and all that stuff. So yeah. Okay.
Good question.
And some of this is tied to the demand analysis results that, in the study, the detail will be more than in the presentation last time of price points, types in terms of we need more two bedrooms. Well, what does that mean in terms of typology? Does fit into missing middle and can, and kind of ties into the features and all that. So there's some empirical data that'll be tied to that will guide, like, what do we need to build?
We need to build everything.
Anything else, Phil?
That was certainly the resounding answer from many of our focus groups. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think we're ready to move to the next slide.
This is promoting access. And again, right now, this is largely focused on physical accessibility, with, of course, space to retool.
I had a question on this one. So there's some agencies in town, some social service agencies who already make accessibility modifications like Independence Inc. And so when you have that as a goal, are you leaning more on the city or the social services in Lawrence?
It could be both. It could be one or the other or both. Some of what, as Andy alluded to, the idea of an implementation matrix and mapping out partnerships and lead agencies. This study will be largely focused on what the city can do, but we also want to take into account what will need to be led by other partners. So if the best most effective, efficient way to get to accessibility modifications that will be, at the targets that we set is to partner with organizations out in the community, that will certainly be the recommended approach.
And there's something there too, like you technically need a permit for some of the accessibility modifications. So there could be some collaboration there to make it very straightforward, maybe low cost, etc. And then the nonprofit's able to implement and stretch their funds a little further.
We need to do a matching program with the city on permits. We'll do $1 if you'll do $1. Go a long way.
I'll say the incentive policy that's being maybe worked does have a lot of this as maybe a part of some of the incentives we would provide. There is an accessibility and affordable housing work group that has been championing a lot of this stuff. So,
go ahead.
I guess just to reiterate that these aren't necessarily new strategies. So Faith, absolutely. There's already the trust fund funds, the independence program, the Habitat program, the Senior Resource Center program. So just it sounds like, just to recognize that this is to set ongoing strategies that may be currently happening and maybe not.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason accessibility is hammered on more is because it's a substantial need. And with the kind of demographic winds of the next 20 to 30 years, it's going to continue to be a need. And, at least 2/3 of older adults surveyed by the AARP want to stay in their home as long as possible. I think it's actually over 70%, but I was trying to not overstate. So it's a substantial need. It's something the city can have a role in, and you already do. But yes, definitely a continuation and add on.
So to me,
go ahead. Sorry, go
well,
ahead.
to me, I mean, obviously we're doing the modifications, and I think we do a pretty good job of that. And there's things in place that do that well. What I think to me, what we're lacking is when we give trust fund dollars, and this is something this group can control, is that we require certain percentages and there's going to be a cost to that as a financial cost to us in the trust fund, but we're going to get the product that we need to serve the populations we want to serve. So that, to me, that's the key new thing in this whole deal that and I circled the bottom, and my thing, it's the bottom too. It's housing for demographics within inequitable choices, universal design, and accessibility tied to incentives.
Yep.
We control that. We can do that with a pen stroke. So we should. That's my recommendation. I'm one person on the committee.
Glad to know.
Anything else? I know we're at time, but I think we have one more slide. Is that correct?
I think there's two, and I was going to ask you, thank you, if you all are okay going for we could say another 5 minutes. I can set the timer again. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so next slide, and thank you for all these good insights. So this is about updating policies, and this slide is very full because, again, the focus of this study is on what the city can do. So a lot of the strategy will, of course, either be focused on policy or involve policies in some way. So, yeah, go ahead.
Preservation's stick in the market.
Yeah.
I'll say it.
That is
preservation
a
of
category for
thing or preservation of historical.
Go ahead, Leah. I'm sorry, I talked over you and I think you glitched out on my end. Could you repeat that?
Sorry.
I apologize.
Just to clarify, are you referencing preservation of affordable housing or preservation of historical resources?
Both came up, certainly in our conversations and also in our analysis. So again, apologies for the vagaries of the word, but good question. Both are relevant.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Can you talk more about how preservation of historical resources would advance unsticking the market or housing affordability?
I can.
I was about to say, I was actually going to speak. My understanding from the roundtables we've had and the research we've done is that it's complex, but I'll let you speak to it. You're probably more expert than I am.
Preservation constituency and policy and city staff take a very conservative view of preservation, and we preserve things that maybe don't need preservation. Our current policy has an environs, which the state and the federal government have eliminated, and that impacts development negatively. So to me, what preservation would be at least aligning with state and federal preservation policy, because that would be a step in the right direction.
That's helpful because the way I read it was advocating for further preservation. So, and yeah, agreed.
We have a very active.
Yes. Yeah. So
community.
Yeah. So I wonder if we can further clarify that the recommendation is preservation of affordable housing and perhaps around preservation of historical resources. It's something different.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would
be. For sure.
And in the breadth of that, it even gets into districts that control things other than what you and I think are what color you can paint it or the siding or an addition. They get into whether you can have a sign or how long it'll take to get it. I mean, it's absolutely caveman's.
This is not on preservation, but
please, go ahead.
Sorry.
Change the subject.
Brain went. I appreciate all of the conversation of preservation. What about county level advocacy at state level. I don't mean to feel disparaged in that, but we're kind of getting our butts kicked at that particular space. Not saying we don't need more advocacy, but I'm really interested in more discussions about a county partnership or county advocacy, because I think that does not, I think that there has been some good inroads, but I feel like the city could do a little bit more in ways of in the affordable housing realm, having a better relationship in that space. I think it's pretty
I just
not very great.
I agree with you. Sidebar, no one's listening. We have decades of the city saying, why don't you guys hold my beer? This is our deal. And so when it comes to money, sometimes the county, having sat in that chair, says, okay, have at it. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot to say in what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. I just think it would be a missed opportunity to not name that as
Agree.
a potential.
A better cooperation between the city and county
correct.
is an opportunity.
So I think sometimes we get put in a pickle.
I don't disagree with what you said about state level advocacy, but I think there is a space to look at that closely and look at where are those points that advocacy can actually make a difference. I mean, obviously if we go and say DEI, they're going to say, oh no, I'm not listening to that. But there are people who are very effective at getting compromise and make compromises on issues that they can be convinced or believe are in the interests of their constituents. And I think some of the conversations, interestingly, this last session around housing policy, it's one of those spaces where
Kansas Housing Advocacy
Network. You've got people, legislators in rural communities
calling us crazy. What's that happening?
Well, the truth is housing.
Recognizing the intersection between housing development and their economic development,
the health of their community. And the housing crunch has hit not just Lawrence,
right,
and not just wherever. It's hit everybody.
Yes, I think.
And there's workforce development in Garden City and
Great Bend and
communities out there that are recognizing that intersection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot on the state advocacy level.
But your cynicism
needs to be there needs to be more of a relationship development. And I think there has been, again, over the last couple of years, some great housing advocacy that has started, and I'm really interested to see Lawrence step into that a little bit more. Johnson County's kind of been leading that. So, okay, we went over time again.
I was just thinking that these 5 minutes are going very fast. Are there any final thoughts on this slide before we get to the last one, which is inform? And I can set another 5-minute timer, or we can just move on to the end and wrap up.
Let's go to the last one.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Setting a timer for 5 minutes again. And this is the last one before our sort of wrap up and next steps convo. So this bucket is fairly self-explanatory, I know, but this is all about dialoguing, informing, having conversations, not just with the public, but with community partners and coalitions and all that good stuff. So
I have a question for you all. This is where you try to get people to change their mind about certain things. And for as progressive as I think we are, when it comes to some things, we're not. Are you seeing other communities start to move on some long-held attitudes about neighborhood construction and all these things this stuff gets to? Show me there's some hope. Show me there's some hope.
That's a great question.
Need a little bit.
yes, and also no. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot spicier out there around housing. And it does really depend on a number of things. I'm trying to not go down that rabbit hole with you all, but yes, having kind of some information that, like, hey, we had this multifamily development in this historic neighborhood in a different community. Um, it actually increased the economic vitality of our neighborhood, and you know, things like that. The stories, not just like the research that shows that multifamily doesn't really have an impact on property values. Like having those stories in a like community does help. And we've seen it throughout during a project where, a lot of communities, including Lawrence, young professionals or kids who want to move back home, not young adults, I should say, uh, want to move back home and they don't have options. That starts to change the conversation because, older adults don't mind usually when their kids want to move back into the community, and be closer and grandkids and all that. So there are elements that are really helping further the conversation. And there's more about what's the impact of doing nothing. Because we've seen, no, not that we haven't done nothing. Sorry about that. Um, it's like things have changed so fast because policies, programs, and whatnot was not in place the last 5 years. So prices shot up and all these different things. So
I,
it's tough, but it is important.
I will say this is what I do for my day job is going to communities that these developments are going and talking about neighborhood investment and community investment. The cultural norms and public opposition is very slow, generation long work. But when you introduce housing or projects that, as much as possible, every step of that conversation involves community engagement, which I think is maybe some of the strategy suggestion here is like, how do we get our developers a little bit more involved in conversations with the community and listening a little bit deeper? That buy-in from the beginning in so many projects that I've seen in communities that look like ours and big cities and rural communities, that trust building process has been incredibly successful because there is that buy-in at the front end. And so I think there is a lot of hope. There's a lot of really amazing projects out there that have helped neighborhoods, people who thought, their house across the street was dilapidated and now is a family home for affordable housing. And they're like, I guess I would have rather seen that than, it just continue going by the wayside. But they were involved in that conversation from the jump. And so it wasn't just development coming in or rehab coming in and doing whatever they wanted. It was saying, let's start here from a place of meeting people where they're at. Understand that there's going to be some of those really dominant stories that come through. And then how do we start moving towards community building, which is compromise. So I think there's a lot we can do in this space, and there's really great examples, especially in the community land trust space, where we have seen not only homes and the opportunity for homeownership or renting or stability, but also the economic impact of those things and being able to put commercial space into community land trust or community gardens or community centers. Like there's a huge world out there. And I think it would be cool to see Lawrence dip its toes a little bit more in that. It just takes time and it's combating a national narrative that says we're doomed because we've over commodified housing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Great points.
I think at minimum
Timer
we could
went off. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Minimum, we could do a better job of telling our successes.
Mm-hmm. Start there.
Because I mean, we could start there. We have a lot of successes.
Yeah.
And you take any one of those, affordable homes that's in a neighborhood. Generally, it's sometimes in an older neighborhood, it's the best house on the block. We don't tell that story. And those are the best homeowners on the block because anyway.
Anything else?
Success.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, well done, everybody. Really important to, just want to echo that last point. Celebrating successes is important, and it's something we do not do enough societally. Okay, so I think we had originally envisioned spending about 10 minutes to kind of wrap up and get your thoughts on some big picture questions. I recognize we are well over time, so I will leave it up to you all to decide if we want to cut this short, if we still want to take 10 minutes. But we had sort of three sort of big picture questions for you all as we move toward our next steps. Questions around metrics for goals, so thinking about tracking and measuring progress and success. Just thoughts on the strategic framework overall. So everything we've been talking about so far, what's working, what's not, what would you change? And then if you have any thoughts about partnerships that you would recommend looking into, we've talked about some of those already, but if there are folks that you, or partnerships that you really, really think need to be emphasized that we haven't talked about yet, we can talk about that a little bit too. And if you, to streamline this, if you want to just pick one area that really speaks to you and share your thoughts about that, we could certainly take that route. So again, we were originally planning to take about 10 minutes on this piece. So how are you all doing on time?
I think one of our agenda items, I think will take some conversation, but I don't think it should eat up too much. So I would be in favor of doing until 7 o'clock. If you all, that gives us about 8 minutes of discussion.
Sounds good to me.
Good.
Okay. And I'll keep it.
Okay, starting the timer now.
On the first metrics for goals, how should we think about measuring and tracking programs on the goals we've set? I think one piece of that is doing as good a job as we can of finding the baseline. Where are we now? What are we doing? What's successful? We talked about community land trusts. How many units are they producing a year or turning into telling the story at the same time? But we're starting with, we're not reinventing.
Right.
We're building. Hopefully doing some new stuff, but we're also building on what we're already working on.
I also think to that point of finding our baseline and also being like some of these are opportunities for us to suggest some pretty creative inroads. And so really encouraging our city commission to help us be creative, help us look at different parts of city funding, city fees, what actually goes into this process, and maybe having a little more ability to have conversation around that, I think would be helpful. But I think the only thing that I felt was really missing from this, and I know they're all elements of affordable housing, but I didn't see a lot of strategy around deeply affordable housing, which I think is the tough point in this community, is looking at that below 60% AMI, which is really where we're seeing a lot of, I think, difficulty in home ownership, and that intersects with a lot of our conversation around the diversity of our community, those statistics around people of color and their ability to rent or even afford. I think that particular piece of the puzzle is missing for me here. So I think like going way back to Leah's like, hey, we're not seeing like something really specific on like deep affordability. I know these strategies will play into that, but I didn't see anything specific about how we're tackling that. Because a place for everyone is not just affordable housing, it's addressing homelessness. And if we do not specifically address those elements of some of that missing housing that we have, specifically transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, then I think we're missing a pretty big chunk of this housing study and what we need to dive into, because we're excluding a large part of our population that we've decided and the city has approved and county has approved we would consider prioritizing.
What is your reaction to, I mean, the way to address that is locally raising substantial money, likely through a bond issue. That's the way communities are addressing it right now, because the federal funding's decreasing.
Yeah,
and
happen here.
Yeah, that will be very.
So I agree with what you said, Muriel. And I think we have, through the process we created through the trust fund, we have incentivized a lot of 60% because we've focused on LIHTC, we've focused on producing a lot of numbers. And maybe it's time for this group to step back and go, where should we be putting our money at this point? I don't disagree with that strategy because we were trying to put units on the ground. I was part of that, so I'm going to defend it a little bit. We tried to put a lot of units on the ground. We've got a lot of units on the ground, but they're all in that 60%, 60 to 80% range. And now we need to change our focus and start addressing this other stuff.
And I would like to see that as a reflected strategy here too.
Yeah.
So we're ensuring that we're not, I mean, we only have a certain amount of power as a recommending board, which I think is going to be an interesting ride for the next several years. But I think if we can see it reflected in this housing study that that's a deep need and that we're willing as a well, I'm not going to, Monty and I are willing, I'm not going to speak for everybody, are willing to look into that. I think a bond issue would be very cool, but not here.
Not likely.
Not here. But that doesn't mean we don't have funding available to start very intentional.
And show what's needed, right? I thought about an NIL for housing and how to really pitch that to funders.
Yeah.
And I think to even the metric points, the last slide that we talked about in the last section with informing people, also not forgetting the narrative piece of metrics, because kind of like you were saying, Monty, if we just prioritize the numbers, we're really abandoning the public having any insight to what we're doing, but also not being able to look at those numbers and have a conversation around them. I think it's very easy when you're just oh, we met that goal, or we work towards it to pat yourself on the back. But I think with how complex all of these different pieces are, that's something to don't just abandon in the conversation of the metrics for goals.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I'm going to always name the county as a potential partner to help us accomplish these goals. So that would
go back to the first slide is the partnership with the Chodo, and let's deliver what we want to do and concentrate on that instead of putting out a RFP to everybody.
Yeah. I do like that.
That's not a unreasonable strategy.
I think you can do some of that extremely low income units as well. I mean,
it's going to take that subsidy.
We could say, for example, rather than trying to help you fill a gap that you have on this 80 unit property, we want to help you give us 10-30% units.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what our money's going for, is that particular gap. You figure out how your project's going. We want to buy down the income and rent level on some of the
right. If you want our money, this is what we want in exchange.
Yes.
Comes down to that.
You want taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Community dollars.
Yeah, and that need is just increasing basically every day, obviously. We all know that, but I mean, what was low income 10 years ago is very different than what we have right now. And so I think that, yeah, that's a great point, is just focusing on that. Because there's a lot of people who aren't able to come to the table and advocate for this, that rely on these resources heavily. And so we're going to see a need for that. And then potentially some public input as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think in the partnerships conversation, not just always focusing on going up, but also like making sure we're actually still focused on, even if it's hard, reaching impacted people, ensuring that like the things that were at this table are like, oh, like this is gonna work for that community, actually working. Just kind of that is the public puzzle. And I think even with like the insights we've gotten for like all of the different focus groups, and this, like, it obviously informs our conversation so much. So just making sure that that's something that we also think of when talking about the partnership.
We got really great insights from the focus groups we were able to have. And thank you again to all of you who live and work in Lawrence for helping us make those connections with people that were really generous with their insights.
Okay, it's 7:01.
7:01. So
Lawrence
that is,
Your
go ahead,
opinions.
sir. What did you say?
Lawrencians will provide you their opinions. No doubt.
No shortage.
Yeah, we had some really rich conversations. It was great. And that not every study is lucky to have that type of turnout. So yeah, thank you for sharing with us. So quick few words on next steps. So as we alluded to at the beginning, we are working closely with the city to put together more detailed strategies with metrics and targets and all that good stuff. We will be back in June for our final trip and for a presentation to city commission and for a public meeting. So that's the big picture. Those are the next couple of things on the horizon. Andy, do you want to add anything I missed in terms of next steps? Sorry, I didn't mean to. You had your thinking face on, and I clearly interrupted a thought. But we're really grateful for your time today. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. This is awesome. I have notes on all your great feedback. We are going to take this feedback and use it to help shape these strategies that we're working on with the city. So, any final thoughts before we let you get on with the rest of your agenda? And thanks again for the extra time today, too.
Who are the people you touch with the city besides Leah?
So Caitlin, Bradley, communications team, Danny, who's on the call. Am I missing anyone? Leah, Danny? Those are our main collaborators.
Yeah,
Steve.
Jeff Craig.
Yes,
Okay.
Jeff, yes. Sorry, I
Thank
missed
you.
Jeff.
Thank
Smart
you.
team.
AHL.
Thank you. And as always, please reach out anytime if you have any follow-up thoughts or questions, things that you forgot to bring up, things that come to you as you're mulling over the materials. Please always feel free to reach out.
Thanks.
Stop sharing.
Will we see the strategies before it goes to the commission?
No, this was, yeah. So there will be one community meeting before going to the commission, but the presentation, the plan will be baked by then. It's the day before the commission meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
City commission.
That's interesting. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We are going to move on to agenda item C2. We're going to consider and provide guidance on policy decisions for the 2027 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity. I'm going to hand it over to Leah to give us some context.
I'm sorry.
No.
I started renaming and I should not have. Okay. Sorry. Switch gears. Okay. Thank you. So
Share that, please.
yeah. So, according to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund NOFO grant making timeline, the draft NOFO should be delivered to you all next month. So we're already gearing up that process for 2027. So I have some policy questions for you all that will help me prepare the draft NOFO that I'll bring to you all next month. Recommendation, requested action. So the following policy topics are presented for your discussion and recommendations. So there are three main issues that I'd like to cover and get feedback on. And then issue number 2, there are several sort of sub questions under that. So if it's okay with you, just start at the top and
Go.
yeah. Okay. So issue number 1 or topic number 1 are the eligible project types for affordable housing trust funding. So the policy question is, should we maintain all the current eligible project categories for the trust fund, or should eligibility be narrowed to prioritize certain types of projects? I've listed the previous project types that have been allowable for funding. And essentially the options are maintain all current eligible project categories or prioritize specific activities.
So we can do each issue and have discussion on it if that feels good to everybody. So we'll go ahead and open up issue number 1 for discussion.
Tell me why we wouldn't maintain all the current eligible project categories. Somebody.
I can add maybe a little bit of our last funding conversation. There was a little bit of discussion around us doing rental assistance. And that's not just the last cycle, several cycles. We have been providing less and less money for emergency rental assistance and have been as quietly as possible, or I guess as best as we could, making the recommendation to city that that should be a line item within the budget as reflected in the county. The last time we had that conversation, I think we were sitting with, do we just not fund this anymore? Is that where this is going? So I think that's one of the pieces. If anyone has any other.
So so say we decided to make that, we're not doing that. Are those our rules, or does that get reviewed and approved by the city commission?
The city commission approves the NOFO.
Okay.
So whatever you decide goes into the NOFO, which they ultimately approve. And if I could just add on, so really, from my perspective, one of the considerations why you may decide to prioritize specific activities is to further incentivize activities that we really want to push for. There will be a larger pot of money for those activities, but then there is a downside to that as well.
Yeah. One way you might address this, if we don't want to just cold turkey cut it off, is say we have $100,000 for this type of project, and we have X $100,000 for ADA modification, accessibility modification. You might kind of create buckets within your thing so that you create this, and we can choose the number. I mean, last year, I think, what did we give? 300, 200? It went down. I remember it went down significantly.
Well,
but maybe you cut that in half, and then next year it goes or whatever.
And I think that's the move. But we can do that with all things eligible. And then when we start talking about it, right?
We can do that informally at the time we award, which is what you're saying.
Well, but if we make a policy to only spend 100,000 on that,
it would be for this one NOFO. Yeah, no, I get you.
Then what if we end up with a lot more money? I mean, what if we end up with projects that aren't as
you could do it as a percentage. You could say we're going to spend X percent of the fund, and if your funding went up, it would go with.
My sense is that that's exactly what we did last time. In a way, we did it through negotiation and discussion, and I didn't get it all my way, and you didn't get it all your way, and
I didn't
So-
either, by the way.
Somebody had.
I've heard you did.
Anyway,
The more flexibility for me as a policymaker is better.
That's the applicant's issue though, I think.
Yeah.
If we're moving toward or away from a certain type of activity, then as transparent as we can be front end about that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, spending, doing their homework at midnight the night before it's due and trying to put that together aren't, have some real.
so a false sense of there's money there to be.
Right.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. And I think you literally made a comment on that last section of like, oh, we've been prioritizing that like 60 to 80. I think this is the time to have that conversation.
Right.
If we're not going to like award money to any of these projects, or that's not something we want to focus around like this cycle, take it out. So they're not wasting their times, writing up reports and stuff and just kind of on the front end. And I'm not saying like that's what we should do. Just like it saves everyone times. And I think especially like trying to like look through the like rubric last time, seeing how much was requested versus what we had, having a much smaller amount that we know kind of aligns with like our goals would have been nicer.
Yeah. Even if we just said we're going to do approximately this much to this, it's a guideline.
But you think right here and now in policy is the place to do it?
So this isn't policy.
This is the NOFO.
These are the rules of the game for this application period.
Correct.
Yes.
And they can change.
That's a
next
policy.
application. I mean, we are literally,
We're
we're creating work groups to potentially shift this even more.
I understand.
So I guess the question is, do we want to not shift what we have right now and continue working on the shift, or do we want a gradual transition? That's the question I'll pose to y'all.
I think the specific thing that you brought up, I personally think a gradual shift would be better. I feel like going like cold turkey, this is on the city commission to do this and us being the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and they don't. Like,
it's gonna screw a lot of people over. It's gonna, cause a lot of issues. And so I know that there's a lot of different things that we want to fund, and the truth is nonprofits are very restricted in the funding that they can have right now too. And so unfortunately, the reality is they are falling back on different funding sources, which this could be one of them. And I think it's just this massive financial cycle that people are trying to dig themselves out of right now. And I'm not saying that I like the gradual, because I think that it allows for more conversation, more of a public push also for it to be an agenda item or a line item. But I think that, agreeing with Donovan, if we just do it cold turkey, it's going to cause a lot of panic and some harm.
Budget request. That has not happened.
Oh,
I mean, I would say yes. And I think that's what we have been doing. I think the question is, are we going to keep dwindling down until we get to that point? And then are we delaying an inevitable push to the city? Or I guess like.
Just wait until everybody bothers applying.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the tension point of, we have made this recommendation now 2 rounds of funding.
But our fights with city council.
Correct. Not with people, which I don't want to punish.
There are lots of people that will not apply for this money because they don't think they have a fair chance against a nonprofit. They don't. And I keep saying, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I need to quit saying that. So I think the rules ought to be as open as they can be, as long as they can be, until we put the gavel down on our selections for how we fund and who we fund. That's my thought. So the question
how about it? Is option A is we keep all eligible program categories with whatever funding they can apply for whatever amount, and we continue to go about the same process, or we prioritize specific activities either limiting eligibility or eliminating types. Or a fun third option if you can come up with it.
And I'm hearing some discussion around limiting funding for specific activities. And I would suggest that if you want to keep that as an eligible activity, but further explore how much of a percentage of the trust funds should go to that you all can make a decision to keep it now. It can go in the NOFO, and then how much is allocated or what percentage could be a future discussion.
So it'll be open. The first, I'm sorry. Nope. First bullet there is property acquisition for permanently affordable housing. Yeah, tell me what that means.
Oh.
What would that be like what happened with Burt Nash? Was that property acquisition, which then the project didn't go through and then we had to do?
Yeah, so the acquisition of land or unit.
And it wasn't all of it necessarily, was it? Anyway,
it was
part or
big chunk of money. Has to be dealt with. Otherwise, I guess where I'm going with this is I have some relatively strong feelings about putting money into a project that isn't fully baked and funded and ready to go. Not with committing the funds or awarding the funds to them, but
actually
dispersing those funds. We're dispersing whatever it was, 900,000. I don't know what the number was.
Right. I get it.
For property acquisition, and the project doesn't happen.
And then
it complicates things a great deal, but it also makes really difficult decisions for everybody from city staff on up to the city commission and the people who propose the activity.
So is there, because we can't commit funds to a future, like we can't commit funds years in advance, right? Which is kind of what we're almost doing when we pay out. Well, that's why we pay out the funds in the same year. But then we have this situation, or we've been awarding funds to LIHTC projects that have not been awarded LIHTC. Right. And that money gets spent, and then we get ourselves in the same pickle. So is that an administrative?
Is it a pickle?
Well, yeah, we just had to have a conversation about clawing money.
Didn't hurt.
I mean, it's not good business.
No,
I would
on whose part?
On us and the part of the city to put money into
taxpayer
project to actually expend money on, say, a proposed LIHTC project that has no guarantee of getting funded.
So
okay, well then there were several projects.
Nash project which didn't have their whole funding stack in place to be able to go forward, and it's like we
funded a lot of things that have finished over time.
That's fine,
and we're glad we did. So
gates on when that money goes out.
I mean, that could be handled contractually by not putting your money in until it's a construction project or something like that.
Right.
Gary, you're not in for development charges and those kind of things. You're in at the point of construction.
Right.
You need to be the last money in. Almost.
Leah may have some clarification if I can just offer that first.
No, understood and agreed that needs to be evaluated and administered differently. And that's a separate issue from what the eligible project categories are.
So, to get us to the next issue.
Could I make just one comment? But Barry, I hear what you're saying, and it could be property acquisition for the CLT, like just getting land into the CLT could be rephrased that way if that feels more comfy. But before we move on, could we come to a decision?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Can we come to a decision? I think what was currently on the table was potentially keeping all categories, but then having discussion for funding after the NOFO is approved.
Yes.
Does that feel comfortable?
They'll be able to make that kind of change.
It's not changing the NOFO. I think because the eligible programs would still be there. It's just we would have a discussion about how much funding we would allocate before the applications go out.
It sounds like Faith is asking a separate question, right? Are you asking?
Yeah, no, for the like if we wanted it instead of for permanently affordable housing, it going into the community land trust.
Oh, just
Do
the
we have to
edit.
make that edit now, or can we make it later on? If that
I would
isn't
suggest making it now so that can be
Okay.
written into the NOFO.
So question one, are we okay with?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Just because you've eliminated every private investor that could potentially supply affordable housing. You would just eliminate them by saying it goes into the trust.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it can't go into the trust, but I wouldn't do that just because you skewed it against a certain
It feels more
constituency.
I think so. I think you've said this is a land acquisition or a land trust. That land goes into trust at the moment that it's purchased, right?
Yes.
And we built that inventory of parcels that tenants to homeowners has to keep those projects rolling. And they've got somewhere to build the next house when they sell.
Yeah, tenants to homeowners, that's the key. If Tony Krusnick came in here and said, I want to put something in a permanently affordable housing for you guys,
Wheatland's doing it.
Wheatland's doing it. But if you change this,
To CL, you're saying if you change it
if you change it to CLT, you've eliminated, unless they're partnering with that
they are.
specific I know Wheatland is,
Yeah, but maybe he isn't.
but maybe he isn't, or someone else isn't. I'm just saying, I
I think that's a consequence we don't want.
don't think you want
I
to
mean,
do
it's
that.
a community land trust. And so I think one of the challenges is that tenants to homeowners and the community land trust are seen as one and the same.
Right.
When actually the land trust is a community land trust for any affordable housing. And then tenants to homeowners is a developer and
Any developer. So Tony, if we're using
Good.
landlord, would put
Could put it in.
yeah,
right.
so separate
Okay, maybe I didn't understand
tenants to
that.
homeowners and CLT.
Okay.
Which
But it also implies if there's real estate involved, it goes into a community land trust. I think there's some consequences that we're not thinking about.
Like what?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been here from the beginning of all the projects that ever got funded, whether purchase of real estate was part of it or not. But again, it's going to be looking like we've restricted this in this world. We're getting real tight on what we want and what we're going to pay for. And I don't like it.
what is for one NOFO cycle? I will also say that.
Yeah.
No, I think all you got to do is change the rules one time, and you lose any confidence that the public has in what this program actually does.
I do want to point out that there's sort of two categories. This is the one that we're talking about right now, but then those other projects could still apply and qualify under the new construction. So one is talking about land acquisition. The other is talking about construction. I don't know if that makes a difference, but.
So I think we're keeping also.
So the question,
Donovan.
would we like to maintain all current eligible categories?
Yes. I think even if we tweak the language on that one, it would still be generally all of the same categories.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we vote on each of these?
You can do it individually
Okay.
or as a package.
Would it be easier to vote on each of these, or would you like to do it as a package?
Well,
I'd like to do them individually.
Okay, then
And it just a yay or nay vote.
Yeah,
Let's agree on a language for any of it.
So we'll need a motion on the table for issue 1. And it sounds like there's choosing option A and option B, and then could be added to the first bullet point of community land trust or not. So a motion will need to be put on the table.
would it be easier if I made a motion and didn't get support, and then you could move on and do something else?
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion that we just say property acquisition for permanently affordable housing, period. Permanently affordable. I mean, I think everybody understands what that is. And To
Okay,
me,
so
99% of people are going to go to the trust because that's the vehicle to do it.
Yep.
Regardless of who it is, but I don't think it singles out anybody.
that is keeping as is.
Keeping as is minus the 99-year plus minimum. I just say permanently affordable.
Well, that's
That's implied.
a term of
Yeah.
art, isn't it? I mean, the
Yeah.
99 years is the
Okay.
kind of accepted standard for
Yeah.
permanent.
I propose we keep it as I'm corrected.
A motion to maintain all current eligible project categories. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay?
Nay.
Okay, we have one nay. Ayes, motion passes.
You made your own motion.
No, for that one. No, I thought your motion was for the whole thing
It was.
to accept all of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's why I said nay.
So what don't you like?
What are you not accepting?
Oh my God.
It's okay.
I would like to have a discussion around affordable housing, community engagement, and if we think that's been beneficial.
Oh.
Have we funded
Did
it?
I retract the vote?
It's okay. We can go 5-1. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
We can go 5-1. I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm
Sorry,
okay with
Monty.
it. That's
That was not clear.
Agreed with you on discussing that one too, but here we are.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Okay, well, we're gonna move
Ready, Joanne?
at 7:26. We do have an end time of 8 o'clock for this meeting. Go ahead, Leah.
Doesn't mean we-
Thank you.
Right. Doesn't mean we can't. have
Okay,
discussion.
so policy clarifications within existing project categories. You all have already started to discuss this, but the sort of the background of why it would be helpful to get further clarity is because ineligible projects, the applications don't come to the board. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So for rental assistance, the category is housing vouchers. It sounds like that there's already consensus to allow short-term rental assistance. So maybe,
There is by me.
okay.
Just approved them.
Okay.
Just approved it.
Okay. So the second one is around supportive housing. So the city and the county have this, I guess it's an unwritten agreement that the county will prioritize funding for supportive housing and the city will lead affordable housing. In the past, the trust fund has provided support for supportive housing. So moving forward, is supportive housing eligible for trust funds or affordable housing for the sort of general public?
I think it's eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
me. Should be.
Okay.
Thank God.
We're talking about the hardest house.
I was going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially if that's not in writing. Like, I
Yeah.
would not feel
Yeah.
those.
Okay. And then affordability period requirements. The current policy requires 30 years minimum of affordability for new development, no minimum affordability period for rehab or accessibility modifications. So should the city establish minimum affordability periods for rehab or accessibility? And then I didn't ask the policy question about increasing the minimum years of affordability, but that's something else that you all might consider if interested.
Aren't there some clawbacks within the programs where some of that money comes to them? Depending upon how it's funded.
Yeah, so the organizations have their own policies and they're not all the same
Yeah.
periods of affordability.
I don't think we're being disadvantaged, taken advantage of by this policy. And if we will, I'm sure we'll get all mad about it. Fix it.
And we're not likely to be funding major rehab, right? Somebody comes in and they need $80,000
Correct.
rehab. They're not getting our money. They're going to get money for,
5,000,
repairs,
8,000.
minor rehab. Which I think is,
I don't think-
the affordability period is probably moot at that point. If we were doing like a significant major rehab, then the concern that I would have would be, we don't want to fund something that then somebody can flip and make money on what we've invested. Right.
Do we need to establish that, or do we feel because we have not run across that particular project we're okay with?
That's the question.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. I guess we would make that decision on funding. So are we comfortable with current policy requirements? 30 years of affordability for new construction,
Yes.
no minimum affordability for rehab or accessibility mods.
Man, I personally think we need to think about what we're trying to prioritize. If we want permanent affordable housing, then we need to state that in the NOFO. If we want 30-year affordability, then we need to state that.
Yeah. So going back to the first question of cutting things, we didn't cut anything to prioritize.
Right.
Right. No, we can do that all funding. It's a discussion. And I think to Barry's point, we put out an OFO that everybody applies to because I think there's if our intent really is to narrow in on a specific whatever kind of housing we want in this community, then that's what we should ask for so people know what the rules are.
But that implies a consensus of kind of projects before we see them.
No, I agree. No, exactly. If we need 30% AMI housing, then that's what we should ask for.
Yeah.
I don't, if 60% affordable housing doesn't help me, then I don't, why ask for it?
We need them all.
I think
with that kind of funding,
I think we have delivered a lot in the 60 to 80%.
So you think we're done there?
I don't think we're done. No, I don't think we're done, but I don't think we should go 100% on that before we address 30%.
We haven't done that.
But no, I think if you look at our dashboard, I'm sorry if
you mean the history of it, what we've done,
worked up a little bit. If we look at our dashboard and you look at what we've delivered over the last 8 to 10 years, we have delivered way heavily on 60 to apartments for rent.
We got it.
At 60 to 80%. And we have way under delivered on affordable to purchase and 30% AMI and below and supportive.
Okay.
So that's where I am. I think we've tipped the scales. And I agree. When we started this, I was the first one on the bandwagon that said, we need everything and we need to get the most of whatever we can get.
As soon as we can get it.
I don't think we're at that point anymore.
Okay.
I feel like
we will decide that as we do. I'm not
right. And I got worked up. Sorry.
It's okay to get worked up about it. I mean, I love that, but that doesn't mean that as a committee, we won't absolutely do what in this particular case you want to do. Right. I don't think any multifamily developer thinks that this is an easy go here. This is the place to go.
I don't agree with that statement.
I mean, we've got more LIHTC projects than anybody in the entire state.
Just clarify the income. LIHTC is 60%.
Right.
And so you're either a hard 60 or you're doing income averaging, which allows you some 80%, but you've got to offset that by 30 and 40%. So we're getting some of those.
Right. We're getting some of those.
Some of those.
The vast majority have been at 60%. I mean, or the averaging.
Right.
So we're having, so that is in D. So we are at C, which is affordability period. So
I must have missed this.
Question is, do we agree with the current policy requirements of 30 years affordability for new construction and no minimum affordability period for rehab or mods? Or do we want I think we're okay with the policy question about rehab and accessibility projects, but it seems like the 30-year piece might be the highlighted concern.
Even if we just said there was a preference for permanently affordable or something like that,
Is that
I don't know.
Is that a possibility?
If we're using a scoring matrix,
prioritize,
add some points for 50 years or add some points for fairy tale.
We have, but it's not weighted enough to make a difference in the scoring.
So would it be, is that an acceptable addition to add permanently affordable 99-year projects will
be prioritized? Something like that.
You mentioned a passion for ownership in your comments.
Mhm.
The 99-year affordability is not going to be an ownership property.
Absolutely. Community land trusts.
Well, in the land trust, yeah, you own the house.
Yeah.
You own it,
The
for
land
example,
is
you
in
own,
lease.
you own the structure and not the land.
Correct.
Do you,
Yeah,
do
99-year lease on the land. Okay.
Correct.
you have a mortgage and everything?
Correct.
Yeah, it's just
You can get permanent financing on it.
Mhm.
all that does
And then-
is that just locks in resale.
Yep.
And then when they leave,
There's a resale formula.
Has to be
I
resale
can't buy it though.
through the program.
You have to be
Correct.
income
You
qualified.
have to be income eligible.
Okay.
So that's what keeps it permanently affordable.
And I can't buy it out of there. In other
No.
words, I can't pay you back for your land.
I
Okay.
don't think so. They lock that in with
Yeah.
a covenant. don't
Yeah.
they?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand it.
Yep.
So
Do you want to
people are
vote
gonna
on
ask me
changing
that.
that?
So does anybody want to change the 30 year? And then we could talk about AMI. But do we want to keep 30 years? Do we want to
So
add the caveat of
minimum 30 years with
Prioritization
prior
for
preference.
50 plus or something.
Scoring incentive or preference for 50 years and permanent.
Yeah, I think since we didn't change the like first group of
Yeah.
things, the prioritization
Okay.
language would make.
So does somebody want to make a quick motion for that one?
I motion for that one.
You have the language, Leah, that you need for that motion, or would you like someone to state it?
Policy requires 30 years of affordability with priority
How about at
Or-
least?
at
least.
minimum 30 years. Minimum 30 years affordability with, I don't know, prioritization or preference. Preference given to projects with 50 plus years of affordability.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Just waiting for me to nay that.
I know, I was like, what do you call me? So, okay, AMI is the last one for this. Oh, wait, nope, just kidding. Almost there. Go ahead.
So you all already started discussing AMI targeting. So the policy question is, should we adopt different AMI targeting requirements based on project type? Some context has already been discussed regarding rental housing, and the types of units that we have seen. In terms of home ownership, the trust fund has not received home ownership applications in several years. And what we understand from our partners who do affordable home ownership is that even at 80% AMI, households are having a really hard time being able to afford that. Our affordable housing study shows that you really have to be at 120% AMI just to be able to afford the average home sales price in Lawrence. So two questions regarding that. One, rental housing. Do we want to set different AMI targeting? Same for home ownership. Is there interest in going up in home ownership AMI targeting
I think so.
or eligibility, I should say?
Why is there a minimum income on rental housing? Why would there be? You got somebody that's zero income.
Yeah, no,
And the landlord says, yeah, I'll work with that.
no, you're absolutely correct. I guess I was thinking about LIHTC projects and what the AMI that they serve, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I don't think, because Lawrence has been on the other end of a real estate market. Just imagine the other way. I don't want to make any policy decisions that are predicated on the cost of housing right now for people. You know what I mean? Because someday that'll look silly.
Mm.
Too many people are getting in, or whatever the dynamic is. I haven't really thought it out.
Yeah, so we do review the NOFO every year, which does give opportunity again to change.
Well, then if we do it every year, what's wrong with just leaving it just like?
Because we are addressing a particular gap, and I think per the conversations we've been having before, if it is of the interest of this board to begin to prioritize projects, populations, or spaces we're seeing gaps, this is an opportunity for us to try it for a year and see what projects come up.
Yeah, going up. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm just thinking about a different way to skin this, maybe, which would be making some kind of requirement for you know, X percent of the units in a project will serve this population. How you get there, I don't really care. But if you got 100 units, 40 of them need to serve this population. You could do that through your 60 averaging or whatever. I'm just suggesting a different formula instead of saying we're only going to do,
30 cash flow without some subsidy, but.
Right, but we're providing the subsidy.
No.
No, well,
No, it's not.
maybe the percent, maybe 40% isn't the number. Maybe it's 20%.
Trading subsidy.
You could do the same thing with accessibility. You could say, look, we're not considering projects that aren't 5% accessible or 10% accessible. And that's the product we want.
Yeah. Good. Well, next question.
And let them figure out. And if we don't get any applications next year, we'll give out a hell of a lot of vouchers. I don't know.
Will we, or will we hold our?
No, we'll spend the money.
No,
we're going to spend the money.
No, we need voucher.
This conversation,
But I don't know. There's a different way to getting
Like
there.
where you're going with that,
This is
percentage. And if we looked at the state's allocation plan for LIHTC, we could model some of that preferencing language around how they work, because they get points for extremely low income units,
Right.
and there's different
and probably accessibility.
to slice that. Yeah.
So we would need to make a decision tonight on what that would look like. Is that
I don't think so. So this conversation is making me realize I should have framed this question differently. So really what I was trying to get at is, what is the maximum AMI for rental and homeownership housing? So if you all could make a decision on that tonight, and then in terms of
Increase.
that's an option for you all to consider.
I think decrease.
homeownership,
For homeownership,
not decreasing?
right. Right now it's 80% for both homeownership and rentals. So that's the decision I'm looking for tonight. And in terms of like a percentage of a certain AMI for rental housing, that could be a future discussion that we could parse out later.
Got a motion?
Baby,
Go ahead.
I move, or I propose, before I make a motion so we can discuss it, that we set our rental at 60%. If you're building rental, we set it at 60%. And if we do home ownership, I would suggest 120%. Does that get us close to where we need to go?
I concur.
Okay. That's any discussion?
That's really what we got there, right?
That's what's on here.
That's what's on here without any minimums.
Right.
So eliminate.
This current policy says 80% AMI for.
Correct.
So that's going away. It'll be 60 for housing, or 60 for rental, and 120 for housing project for sale ownership.
So the discussion is going to be if Tony or Wheatland or somebody comes in with a project, they're doing income averaging and they've got some 80% units in there offset by those 30%.
The overall has to be 60.
Keep going. What's that mean?
That if we've said we're not funding, if it sounds like we're saying we're not going to fund anything that has units over 60%, then we're going to have an awkward discussion about, oh, wait a minute.
Well, maybe we just change this to say an average of 60% of AMI.
Yeah. Or you could
We're
say
doing math am I doing math that I don't understand how it impacts a project? Probably.
I think what we're saying is we're setting a standard for that units we'd like to see.
Income averaging 5 or 6 years ago and as an option.
So if you got 10 units, you can list 2 at 80. Okay.
But until you and I, do this 40 unit deal and do the math, and all of a sudden we go, well, can't do it. Then we just can't do it.
No, I agree. Or you ask for more subsidy. Or you have to have LIHTC.
You mean from somebody else?
Or us. There's a cost. If we require these things, there is a cost to us. Certainly.
In other words, the dollar we have to spend goes goes
means we get fewer units per dollar, but we get the product.
But we get the units.
and drag down our leverage forever. Okay. Or we,
I mean, we are
Trade, it's
the
certainly
world
a
of
trade.
affordable housing, not just housing.
So do we need to add, so maybe, should I make a motion?
Yes.
Make your motion.
I move that for rental housing, that we have the housing average 60% AMI.
You have to do the second piece.
And then the second for sale or home ownership housing, that we target 120% AMI and below.
And the under rental, no more than 60%.
Yeah. Under rental, no more than 60% average.
Okay.
Okay, motion on the table.
okay, I'm not going to support that. I'm not mad.
There's a motion on the table. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, E, Universal Design Standards.
Some jurisdictions, and we have had ongoing conversations about this on this board. Some jurisdictions do require universal design elements for affordable housing trust funds or public subsidy. So the policy question is, should the trust fund require that all trust fund supported projects, new construction projects, include specific universal design elements?
What is
What are
HUD?
they? What is who?
HUD?
HUD doesn't have universal design requirements.
I know. What do they require?
If you've got federal funds, you got to have 5% fully accessible under UFAS, Universal Federal Accessibility Standard.
Which is what we currently.
Fair housing design applies to all properties of 4 or more units.
Or more.
As long as the units are, ground level or elevator units.
So so universal design means if there's a 2-story, it has to have an elevator?
No.
Universal design's an expansion on current standards, so it's looking at more specific accessibility practices, so door width.
Well, we had some people tell us on this committee that the costs weren't significant. It's not crazy, but I just want to know how it's different. And I mean, I want it too, but I'm going, okay.
It's a big.
What are the elements of universal design? I mean, it's.
So here's that's
No,
What's it mean?
yeah.
it's
Fiscally.
It's really more conceptual, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You do these certain things, and I think
To your
we
point,
can define what we want for accessibility at a minimum.
Students to Homeowners has a universal design guidelines that they use in all their construction that I think adheres to.
Well, and our work group, so there's an accessibility and affordable housing work group that came up with universal design requirements that is a part of the affordable housing incentive policy. So my suggestion would be that this board use that same universal design standards that was based off our review of multiple communities and their universal design.
so there,
Though that there was previously language about being able to choose among those elements, or was it a set?
No, so the universal design elements are to be required for all incentives. The sort of choice was regarding fully accessible units.
I guess my perspective. Oh, go ahead.
You can continue.
From my perspective, being in the building industry all my life, I would rather, as a builder or developer, see something that says I have to provide so many fully ADA compliant units because I know exactly what that means as a designer and as a builder. It's very defined. I can quantify it and I can put a number on it. When you have something that this city's developed or whatever, if I'm Cohen Eshery from Kansas City, I got to relearn all of that. It provides unknowns in the project and our project cost goes up and we may not get what we want. So I would rather see us, not that it's a bad idea, it's a good idea. I just, from implementation standpoint, it's an unknown for a contractor, builder, developer. And I think you when you say I want a fully ADA accessible unit, every designer in this country knows because that the ADA code's been in there since 91, I think it was. I don't know how to quantify that.
Yeah.
It eliminates an unknown.
This city needs no more barriers with image than they already have.
So I'd put my money towards if 5% is the HUD requirement and we want 7%, go to 7%. You want 10%, go to 10%. They can at least quantify it and we'll know what it is and we'll get more units.
So just universal design does not cost the developers more when they're including it in the initial design. Fully accessible units do. And we have standardized criteria that we can give to developers like other communities have. It's very granular. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share my screen right now to show you. But there is just like other communities have really specific. So the doorway has to be this width, from, I believe there's like, I don't know how many pages.
Kelsey's the Kelsey guideline.
Yeah. The Kelsey, yeah. So just,
well defined. I got maybe,
yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. I've been in the industry 30 years. I've never had it on a project.
Right. It's
a new thing.
It has not been required in our community.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, it's a Kelsey.
It's been
around for a while.
It's not in Lawrence. Yeah.
Enforced.
Statute or
Yeah.
Donovan, please go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think using the universal design standards and having just a higher bar for accessibility that could be beneficial to anyone makes sense to me based off of looking at what we saw in the report around disability, what we're hearing about aging in place, and also just like even with like our focus groups, like just like concerns about like this is different accessibility needs across demographics. I don't think it would hurt, and I'm not a developer, but I think in the sense of widening doors versus requiring more fully accessible units, which come with like obviously certain things. Like I would like to maybe know the exact cost breakdown, but I don't anticipate that would piss anyone off more than being like, you're going to spend more money on this like specific type thing,
right.
Specialization.
And I would hope it would allow some of these projects to be more thoughtful. I'm thinking of a particular application where we had a resident building that had one elevator. So is introducing maybe as we have the HUD standard of 5% units, could we attempt that as because this is scoring, like it'll be tied to scoring or it'll be required?
I'm asking about requirements. Okay. So yes, one option would maybe we could require an additional 2 more fully accessible units, or we could require that all units funded have universal design standards.
Yeah, you could go,
it doesn't have to be either or.
50%.
We could do both.
And or if you want to apply, you have to have 50% universal design units. It was the same way they do the accessible. I mean, you wouldn't have to make it 100%.
Design that you're talking about, does that exceed what fair housing design?
Yes.
And kind of, I mean, just a couple of examples.
So,
You have it in front of you.
grab bars, in showers.
Fair housing requires blocking for grab bars. It doesn't require installation of the grab bars, but you do have to install them at the benefits, right?
Yes, and this would say that they need to be installed. Right now, we are subsidizing development of units, and then we are also subsidizing accessibility modifications to units. That's awesome, but it could be that we could that those modification or the accessibility elements could be built in so that they don't have to go in with greater expense later to add them.
Right.
I to that point, like I think it's worthwhile. I am someone who works as a nonprofit. Like if we can completely remove the issue that this group has to exist to solve, that's a really good thing. And I think with just like being like very intentional about like, we're not building housing to in the next 5 years have to fund making it accessible 10 years ago, knowing that
Right.
accessibility was something we should have prioritized. That just makes sense to me. Do you know?
Motion on the table if anyone would like to do that. You'd like to put a motion on the table? I will say we are at 7:56, so not to rush the discussion, but we still have a third issue.
Okay.
My mind goes to, I'd like to read those standards, compare them.
Right.
But
Okay. I seem to be the motion person today. Well, I can't. Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we add the requirement for universal design on 40% of all units funded.
Second.
Right. We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Oh,
Discussion.
Yeah.
I can discuss. Go ahead.
Perfect. I'm going to say no.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Well, I'd like to have more discussion.
Okay, we can have discussion.
I want to understand what you're uncomfortable, and I know you're uncomfortable. So
I'm trying to.
Because the language is plain and simple, and that makes it cloudy for a lot of people. Like if you're building 2 duplexes, if you're tenants, homeowners or whoever, you're building 2 duplexes.
It's 40% of
You got to
full.
do 2 units universal.
yeah, you'd have to meet a minimum of 40%. Maybe that's.
I don't know.
Here's my concern. We're talking if this were the planning commission or if this were the city commission, we were making a law. And I know the planning commission didn't make laws either, but we would have architects talking to us about the good and the bad of that. We'd have builders. We'd have input from all directions on the good and the bad of this kind of policy. And I have none of that. And I don't know what you know about the housing that you study and live in and all that. I just don't. But I'm a reasonably smart layperson, and I'll look the builder in the eye and say this is a good idea, but I don't have enough information. So I can't support that. My worry is that we start shrinking the people that come to us for money. And then the people that know the game, play the game, do the game a little different, all of a sudden are the only ones at the table. And then when we run out of those, then it just goes to vouchers. And that isn't what I thought we were up to. I do want to get units on the ground. I want to get people housed. And you're right, we're going to come back and we're going to put grab bars up in 10 years, no doubt. But that's $1,500 in 10 years. And every dollar we don't spend today, we might be able to figure out a way to have another unit on the ground. So anyway, I don't know enough about what we're talking about. I'm not versed enough. And I've been hanging around here for a couple of years. So
I guess for the specific motion, my only question was, does this impact the like fully accessible units at all? Are we changing that percentage or anything?
There are
Oh, I didn't.
those requirements.
There was no motion on the table to increase or decrease.
Okay.
We would stick with the HUD standard of
Okay.
5%.
as in our current application. So that would not change, but it could change.
So in the previous document, it was before I was here, but I complained about the accessibility requirements, standards. The state statute that was referenced in there covers 1 to 3 unit buildings that fair housing doesn't cover.
Mhm.
Very clean, very simple. My objection to that was that the statute was cited as if it applied, and it doesn't, but we could adopt the same standards, which sets some minimal, you gotta have door widths and clear pathways and blocking for grab bars and switch and outlet heights, to make things just clear entryway, to make things very basically accessible in a single family or a duplex or a triplex. Fair housing covers units of buildings of 4 or more, and that's also fairly clean. And there's some things like you don't have to install the grab bars, but you've got to do all those other things with or in clear space in the bathrooms and the kitchens and those kind of things. Plain, simple, everybody understands it. And builders understand it because they have to do it anyway, right?
I'm wondering if I should withdraw my.
Threw it in as a preference or a scoring, if you commit to some
Might be the middle ground.
That's in our
Yeah.
matrix.
Okay, can I, Chair, can I
Yes,
propose to withdraw my
sure.
current motion with the concurrence of
I
the
said,
second,
Okay.
the unsecond?
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the discussion.
We still need to make a decision.
So do we want to incentivize that by saying it's preferred somehow, or do we
Yeah,
wanna
it's
go to
already
these other
included in
standards?
matrix.
So this is like a yes or no is what we're at. I think the percentage just gets weird with like universal design. If it's raising the bar like 2 rooms out of a house.
Yeah.
For bigger projects, it does, but
Yeah,
Maybe we have that allocation conversation when we have that conversation. Perhaps there's a preference for universal design and
I like
allocation
that. I like the
projects.
concept. I think setting it as a requirement.
As a way to,
okay,
It's key.
a way to begin, because I think this will merit more conversation as we
Yeah.
get into the incentives and ultimately as we shift.
so can we create a preference for universal design? And what was the standard you quoted? Fair housing?
Well, fair housing applies.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you build
Right,
if you
right.
build a 4-plex, you have to meet.
You
fair
got to
housing.
do it.
So
Okay,
it does apply.
It's whether or not I guess you want to increase the HUD standard of 5%, which you could if you wanted
it would
to.
it'd be just an open-ended.
Can also
Agree.
incentivize that.
Yeah.
And that's what Kansas Housing does with LIHTC,
Mhm.
or home funds.
That's what we do as
You have
well. It-
5% minimum, but if you're committing to 10%, you got.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the
So here's-
clarity that this would say like you must do it. Whereas all of these things I think that we're recommending are things we do have in our scoring matrix.
right.
Um,
And my fear there, which you help support, is we have our not-for-profits that will come in and do that and understand that. And we'll have our for-profit people that come in and they're going to meet the bare minimum because they're trying to make a budget work
mhm.
Right.
and they're trying to deliver a project. And
But we might incentivize.
we've again skewed against the private developer a little bit.
Who is getting LIHTC
I don't
funding?
think so.
Yeah, I was like,
Okay, I don't know.
getting awarded
I don't know.
LIHTC projects.
Private development says
Sorry.
just as much a
Such an
responsibility.
interesting narrative.
Um, thoughtful, responsible development is.
Yeah,
Say,
but they're going to do the net.
better
They're going to
for-profit developers.
For-profit.
We'll be making a profit
Right.
off of this.
No, definitely. And they're going to make the most profit they can make. That's
Correct.
part of their
We're
business.
gonna tell every one of them, we got $1 million and we got $5 million request. What would you do?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So it'll come back to
So,
us.
New Hampshire, we
at
had
this
that
table.
discussion about the elevator
Sure.
and they said, if we're funded, we'll come back with some design changes.
Can I note to just vote on whether to make it permanent or not?
Go ahead.
I move to adopt the universal design standard as permanent.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can we please move forward?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will vote all those in.
Can you restate
Yep.
the motion?
The motion is to go ahead and have our Affordable Housing Trust Fund new construction projects required to meet universal design standards. That is the motion that has been put on the table.
Yeah. We're just answering the question we were
Yep.
asked.
All those in favor, please say aye. All oppose?
No.
Okay, abstained? Nope. Okay, I guess the motion does not pass. So we will not include universal design as a specific requirement. Okay, I'm going to take a pause because it is 8:06. That is after our meeting. So we would either need a motion to extend our meeting or we will end our meeting here and have to revisit this and delay the NOFO.
What do we have left?
We have one more issue, which might be an interesting conversation.
Can we dedicate 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So,
I move that we extend the meeting 10 minutes.
okay, a motion. Has there been a second to extend meeting? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of extending the meeting by 10 minutes?
Aye.
Okay,
I'm hungry too.
we got until 8:16 and we still have to do public comments. So,
Okay.
Go ahead, Leah. Issue 3.
Thank you, Chair. So I would suggest that this will need more than 10 minutes so that perhaps you all could start thinking about it tonight and then bring it back next month for a decision. It has been recommended by an affordable housing developer that we standardize local support for LIHTC projects. So the recommendation is that the city would put a package of support behind one project per year that is approved for LIHTCs. The suggestion is $10,500 per unit in trust funds up to a 50-unit cap so that they score the maximum points for per unit support, local support, that we provide 80,000 and support for quote fee waivers, and then the issuance of IRBs, which this board could not make a decision on, but that's being proposed in the package. There are some potential outcomes and some potential unintended consequences that I've listed here. I think just in brief, the idea is, that this would guarantee that the trust funds are going towards a project that is feasible, that will be built in a timely manner, and that already has financing secured. Just one of the potential downsides or unintended consequences, and there are others, is that, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So potential outcomes, streamlined process, shorter timelines, stronger financial feasibility, et cetera, unintended consequences. So would reduce our ability to negotiate for perhaps better, deeper affordable units, more accessible units, et cetera. We would basically just be adopting what the state decides, and really reduce the ability to prioritize projects based on local needs. Rather, that would be decided by the state.
Okay.
Any questions before discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why is this in front of us?
Because a developer
Yes.
requested it. I guess anyone can request.
Why didn't they ask for 2 projects a year?
Because of the changes in state LIHTCs, there will likely not be more than one funded project per year.
So what
Receiving
mass do you pay for the developer?
It's to make it so that they have more guarantee of local support that they can count on, so that they can get the scores right on the LIHTC application.
And never
State level,
it's never
but it's got to work for us.
Yeah.
Go.
Go.
Please go.
Well, I see a couple of problems with this. One, it makes us select a project without a competitive process. We have multiple LIHTC projects in front of us every year.
Right.
This only, so to me, it's eliminating the competition in the process and our ability to go, that's the best project for Lawrence. That's my biggest beef with this.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. And then, we don't seem to have a problem getting LIHTC projects. This has not been a problem for us to be awarded projects in the past. It's a problem we're not solving. I mean, it's a problem that doesn't need solving.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think go ahead, Barry.
So if I'm understanding the request, it's kind of a preemptive strike here. It's rather than coming to us and saying, can you give me these incentives to beef up my LIHTC application? We provide the incentives and then they may or may not get the
Correct.
funded. There's an assumption being made that there will be one LIHTC project
Mhm.
in Lawrence, and whatever that one project is, we pre-commit to providing $500,000 in incentives plus the $80,000 fee waiver so that they do get the points.
Correct.
On their application.
Which I will say is not an actual fee waiver. It is us taking taxpayer dollars and putting it back into the city, which they had to. When that happened last time, there was a letter that had to be written from KHRC to get that approved. Those particular points are for community, that the community is backing these projects. So if we're guaranteeing essentially a pipeline of a LIHTC project, it's eliminating community incentivizing for this.
So, for example, if there were 3 LIHTC applications, all 3 of them could claim that city support on their application because we are guaranteeing ahead of time that whatever one of them is successful is getting all in.
And so how much of our money is in that 80 and the 500? The 80 and the 500, was the 500 just an example?
Yeah.
Well, 50, the way she wrote a cap, the way they wrote the cap here, it would be capped at $500,000.
Oh, I see. A little over $500,000.
Okay, but that would be the request that we've struggled with.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's something magic about this 80 grand. I mean, why can't my next LIHTC project, why can't I understand there's an $80,000 fee in there they got to deal with? I mean,
we need to change the ordinance to allow for fee waivers.
Yeah, that's not even in our.
That's what needs to.
they say
It's essentially
not ordinance. They say it's statutory.
Essentially, what happens though, if we do that is we're giving them another $80,000 of our funds.
The 80 bothers me much less than having to pick a winner before a winner gets picked.
But I don't think we're talking about specifics. This is asking for a full package approval. It's not saying like certain things.
Blanket.
Yeah.
It'd be a blanket policy that if
The city can do
one
that.
LIHTC project gets
You can do
whatever
whatever you
LIHTC.
want.
The city can do what the city can do how this is. They could absolutely do this. Right? They're the
Yeah,
boss.
our recommendation would be yes or no. That's this whole entire board is a recommended
Okay.
board.
All right, we can do this. This is silly.
Okay, is there a motion on the table or a proposal for a motion? The question is, sorry, let me scroll. Should the city establish a standardized local support package for LIHTC applications or continuing evaluating requests on a case-by-case basis?
I make a motion that the city should continue evaluating the requests on a case-by-case basis.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, friends, let's blast through the rest of this.
2 minutes.
We got 2 minutes and we got to do.
Extend.
We will probably have to. Sorry, to make a motion to extend. Can we have a motion to extend?
I move we extend 4 minutes for public comment.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. Item C3 is receive and consider staff recommendation to cancel the 2026 AHAB retreat. And there's an action. Go ahead, Leah.
So after all that time was spent picking a time for the retreat, so the recommendation is that so the city commission adopted the A Place for Everyone plan, which is the community-wide strategy for affordable housing at this point. The affordable housing study will have strategies and actions that will be adopted into the A Place for Everyone plan, most likely. So rather than having the AHAB have separate goals and strategies from our community plan, that the AHAB just adopt the goals and strategies in the Place for Everyone as sort of as governed by the city commission, and therefore a retreat is not needed to set separate goals and strategies.
All I will add to this is that what I would offer is the opportunity for AHAB to review those goals and strategies that the Place for Everyone has, and if it's necessary to have a joint meeting between those groups. So we don't feel as a board we're just giving marching orders. It's an actual discussion. So that would be the caveat I would offer to this.
I quite like that.
I like that.
They can't leave us.
All right. Well, then I need a motion, please,
So the motion is
to cancel or cancel
I
retreat.
move that we cancel the
Second.
Okay.
planned retreat.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. Project updates. Project updates, which is item D. Do we have anything on the municipal land donation research project that is worth talking about right now?
No, Barry and I have reviewed some properties and we plan to get back together and come to this group with a recommendation.
One question is this,
Tremendous amount of work on it.
Thank you, Mom.
is this in fact the list of vacant lots that we have?
It's Barry and I are looking at a lot of vacant lots. We're not going to bring every lot to this group. We're going to bring a small recommendation for things that we think can reasonably move forward and have a political chance of achieving something.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. And then for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Revenue Project, Donovan and I have been doing some research. We're still kind of working on some preemption state statute pieces, but our intention is in the May 14th meeting to bring some funding recommendations to the board for discussion. And we will actually provide those ahead of the meeting. So hopefully in the next week or two, so you all can have some time with them because I think they might be a little exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, calendar E, y'all see the calendar. That's it. Any questions on the calendar?
No.
Great. Then we will move to public comment. So we'll start in the room. There is no one here. Is there anyone online who would like to give public comment?
I don't see anybody.
We outlasted everyone.
Yeah, everybody dropped.
All right, we outlasted everyone. Okay, so thank you all. We are at our adjournment. It is 8:18 and we are done with our meeting. Thank you very much.
Actually did that in 4 minutes.